Look at this succulent love bundle over my shoulder. This is a pig, and as cute and sweet as she is, she represents all that's wrong with our country. As you know, pork spending is where adorable pet projects are shoved inside bills that usually have nothing to do with the intended legislation. That is one form of spending that's out of control, and for tonight's discussion, government spending will be represented by our piglet, whom we've named Pelosi. Everyone has a cause, every district has needs, but servicing each desire is not only impractical, it's impossible. From debt to budgets and entitlements to defense, where can we cut and how are we screwed? Hey, Pelosi, where's the pork? Welcome to the Independence. Like, hello, I'm Kennedy. I'll be your hostess this evening, along with Reason Magazine editor-in-chief Matt Welch. And, oh, Matt's wearing a tie. That's fantastic. And Camille Foster from Free Think Media. Free thinking indeed. We are hog wild about tonight's show and a little ham-fisted. And together we are the Independents. Our national debt is over $17 trillion and growing. And one ambitious lawmaker back in 2008 had a succinct way of summarizing our bloated debt bubble.
Number 43 added $4 trillion by his lonesome, so that we now have over $9 trillion of debt that we are going to have to pay back. $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
Yes, debt is unpatriotic, isn't it? Oh, back in 2008, really only $9 trillion. Now it's $17.5 trillion. Well, we are in the here and now, and the beacon of truth and light for whom our pig is named has a hard reality to grasp for anyone eager and willing to trim the fat from those well-stocked cupboards.
Because the cupboard is bare. There's no more cuts to make.
It's bare. There's nothing more we can do. It is completely anorexic.
All right, well, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think Nancy was as thorough as she could have been in her inventory. We're spending too much. The things we're financing, like Social Security and Medicare, are only going to require more grist. So what can we cut? And if we don't, how are we screwed? With us is Nick Gillespie, editor-in-chief of Reason TV and Reason.com. And we're going to start with debt. All right, so debt is like a dead possum's belly in the hot sun, ready to fail and explode. And that's going to happen fairly soon. Now, are some liberals...
Are we talking possums or pigs?
No, possums. Now, now we've moved from pig to possum.
All right.
No,
This is
the
gonna end
debt...
up with a kangaroo?
Specifically, possum is a marsupial.
Yes.
Are liberals too concerned about reanimating the possum, bringing him back to life?
Yeah, well, here's the real problem. People talk about debt as if it's not a pressing issue. It's something that we'll deal with later. Even people like Paul Krugman says, you know, we have a long-term debt problem, but each day he wakes up, he's like, well, you know what? Today we don't have a debt problem. That's in the future. And it's like, you know, he's like Annie and Little Orphan Annie. It's tomorrow's always a day away. But the fact is that debt is already choking our ability to maneuver in the economy, and it's destroying the future for all of us at this table, plus the pig, plus our kids.
How so specifically? How is it choking? What is a modern example of?
Okay, well, first off, debt is a problem because it has to be paid at some point, and we are now at a point where it's over 100% of the whole economic activity. We cannot grow our way out of this, so that implies either steep benefit cuts in the future or tax increases in the future, or now, actually, we have raised taxes over the past couple of years. So right there, it's already strangling things. It injects a lot of uncertainty because people in the economy don't know when those tax cuts are going to come. They don't know when inflation is going to come or if it's going to come. When is spending going to be cut? And as a result, you kind of get frozen into place, and you can't act the way that you would normally.
Within 10 years of the moment that we're sitting right now, debt service, the annual service interest payments on the debt, is going to exceed the amount of money we spend on defense. That is a shocking number.
I mean, right now it's about 6%. What is it going to be in 10 years?
It's $223 billion a year. It's going to be $820-some-odd billion a year. That's more than defense.
That's just paying the interest on what we owe.
Just paying the interest. The only other things that are bigger in the budget are for Medicare, Social Security. That's basically it. So debt service plus those entitlements within a pretty short time is going to be 75% of all federal dollars. Right now, it's more like 40-something%.
Well,
so it's going to swallow everything.
This is also, I mean, it's related to debt, but one of the reasons we have so much debt is because mandatory spending in the budget, which is entitlements.
You know what? Hold that thought, because we're going to talk about that right now. We are talking about spending, and there are two kinds. There is mandatory spending, and that is where we have to spend on things like entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We don't have a choice about those. There's also discretionary spending on things like defense, education, and laundry folding robots. So which should be mandatory?
Well, first, let's
take entitlements.
Okay, but there is no such thing as mandatory spending. We call it mandatory, or rather, politicians call it mandatory, because it doesn't have to be renewed every year.
Yes.
In order to grow and expand.
It's not like other aspects of the budget that have to be serviced with.
Right, and I mean, we didn't show up in America and be like, oh, you know, there's a lot of mandatory spending here. It's not something that was discovered. It's invented. It needs to be cut. Medicare, which is health care for the old that is provided by the federal government, Medicare is unsustainable. Currently, the taxes and the fees that people pay for cover less than half of the costs. It's going to explode. It already is starting to explode.
Well, good thing people are getting younger.
That's right. You know, or at least they're feeling younger, and they better keep feeling that way because, I mean, it's unsustainable. Social Security, which is another major part of the entitlement state, is, I would say, is immoral because it's basically cheating young people now. It's taking money from them now, paying it to old people, and with the promise that that system will be around when you're
older. Also theoretical, which, you know, has to be contrasted with Obamacare, which is right now robbing younger generations to pay for older and sicker people.
Well, it's charging younger people more than they would in a regular market in order to pay for older people who, by and large, are better off. As a group, older people and retirees are much better off than people under 30. And one of the reasons is because all of your payroll taxes, your FICA taxes, goes to programs that pay old people who have savings and who have a safety net they've created over a lifetime of work.
And here's a bit of good news. People are living longer, and there are more old people to live longer. It's great. We're so hosed. All right, well, different folks use different pen strokes when it comes to crafting budgets that might bring balance to the madness. Paul Ryan is considered a budget wonk. I hate that term. He just released his latest 10-year budget blueprint, and Rand Paul has a slightly different take on balance. Now, these have become political exercises that are essentially fictional campaign documents. So in a sense, they're all the same. Will any of this stuff actually get cut?
No, is the quick answer. The longer answer, which is I think more interesting, is that Paul Ryan now has gone from balancing the budget in 2063, which is what he was planning in his great long-range plan a couple of years ago, to balancing it in 20 years. And now he's going to balance it in 10. So it means that the Rand Paul argument, which is balance it in 5, let's actually cut 4 departments and federal agencies here.
And have a flat tax and cut defense spending, which is something that the Ryan budget doesn't do.
Does not, nor does the Obama budget in the long term either. So it shows that the political reality is changing. That doesn't necessarily mean that the policy reality is changing. Important thing to remember about the policy reality, in 2000, the federal government spent $1.8 trillion. In 2010, $3.7 trillion. That's just in 10 years. And then that was accepted as the new normal, the baseline from which Nancy Pelosi cannot bear another cut. That is not normal. That is totally abnormal, and it's crushing all of us. If we had just increased the cost of government by the size of population and inflation, we'd be spending $2.6 trillion a year, not 3.6, 3.7 as we are now. That's the problem.
Well, the Ryan budget, like the president's budget, which we saw a little bit earlier, represents the hopes and aspirations of the party. The big deficiency, as you pointed out, is that the defense spending does not get cut in the Ryan budget. In fact, Ryan is the guy who is giving away the defense spending cuts we actually got from the sequester.
It's important to note, he was very proud of busting the sequester, which cut defense spending, you know, to say, hey, look, I put more money back in the defense. Defense went up by about 70% between 2000 and 2010. It's not like we're ending 2 major wars. But the Pentagon is saying, oh, well, you can't end those overseas contingency operation funds, which could be as much as a couple $100 billion a year on top of the base military budget, because we're using that now to cover regular expenses. So don't cut us. It's insane. The only part of the budget that normally gets cut is defense spending after you ramp down wars, which is exactly what we should be doing.
If you're talking about real dollars, yes, it has increased, but the Heritage Foundation says that, you know, you have to chain defense spending to GDP, and in that sense, it is dropped precipitously, which is really stupid. I mean, that seems so arbitrary.
The fact of the matter is that defense, you can say with education, if you pay $1,000 per student, as you get more students, you'll have to spend more money. Defense isn't like that. We have the same borders and we have the same threats to face in the past. It's not because we have 300 million people, we need more than if we had 150 million people. We're defending a perimeter, and that perimeter is not growing. And it's also true that all of our defense spending needs to be understood in terms of a foreign policy strategy, which probably shouldn't be invading countries, bombing countries, droning countries without any kind of real
Which used to be a minority belief, but I think a majority of Americans agree with that point, and it is much more pragmatic. Nick Gillespie, thank you very much. And thank you for whetting my whistle on defense, because we're going to get to that. I go searching for waste inside the U.S. Capitol and get kicked out of a few places in the process. And why is government spending $1 trillion on planes that may never fly? Smells like bacon. It's The Independence. Hi, Pelosi.
I got chicks jumping up like try me. They got Rick rubbing up on high knee. Why me? Could be the illest rocking on the bill in a six-way split.
Welcome back to The Independence. Government spending out of control. Where's the pork? Where could we cut? What should go? Guess what people said. Where does the government spend too much money?
Probably helping other countries. That sounds terrible, but it's probably true. Helping other countries.
Okay.
Because there's lots of other people that need help here.
I would say on the government, really.
Yeah. Government's just too damn big.
Yeah, exactly.
We've heard it spends too much money on defense. Yeah, that's what we've heard.
On wall. Prisons.
Military.
Probably the military.
The military?
Okay. That's totally the answer. They spend a lot on the military.
On the military.
It's
on
crazy.
Wars, yeah.
Wars, one after another.
Yes, one after another.
Syria, Iraq,
Syria,
Iran,
Ukraine, Russia,
whatever.
what's going on? I don't even know.
They don't even care. They just want to go in and shoot people.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, the defense budget is massive, and while many people argue we want a strong, meaty military, we all intuitively know surely something could go if we were going to streamline the various branches. Planes that don't fly, sweetheart defense contract deals, so much waste. But does it keep us safe? Let's talk to a military expert. He knows the defense budget inside and out. So why is he one of the few who's actually freaking out over what we waste? Ralph Peters is a former lieutenant colonel in the Army. He's a Fox News strategic analyst. Welcome back to The Independence, Ralph.
Hi, Kennedy. Hey, I've got to correct one thing. Nobody really knows what's in the defense budget. It is so complex that the amount of waste hidden in there is really phenomenal. And, I firmly believe in a strong defense. If you don't like an expensive peacetime military, try a devastating war. But that said, what I have seen with my own eyes, what I've experienced, is that we have a system of what I call legal corruption, in which the contracts are written when you buy weapon systems, incredibly expensive weapon systems, that don't protect the troops, don't take care of the taxpayers' trust, but simply reward extravagantly this cartel of major defense contractors we have. Now, I believe in capitalism. Capitalism works, but we don't have real competition.
Yeah, I was going to say,
defense.
is that applied in the area of defense? And I know you have said Lockheed Martin is the Antichrist. I want you to talk specifically about. That's funny. I want you to talk specifically about two of the planes that you take issue with, the F-22 and the F-35. How much are we wasting on those?
Yeah, and I want to make clear that although I'm an Army guy, I can criticize waste in all of the services. But right now, the most egregious examples are the Air Force. It's stunning. The F-22, which you don't hear about anymore, it was going to do everything. It was going to cure cancer. It was going to defeat terrorists. It's been in our inventory for a decade. It has not been able to fly, as near as I can tell, a single combat mission where it engaged an enemy. You can't deploy it overseas because it requires this vast support and maintenance tail, brought to you, by the way, by the contractors. So those were airplanes that don't work. F-22, still very troubled, cost $350 million a piece. Now, the Air Force will tell you, oh, no, it was only $180 million a piece, because they don't factor in the cost. So that's money spent, sunk cost, gone. But now, there's an even bigger boondoggle. We're developing an aircraft, the F-35. There are already a few in the inventory. It was supposed to be a versatile wonder machine that could take on all our enemies. It's a bloated, short-range, unmaneuverable plane that's problem-plagued. And you know what that's going to cost? conservative estimates tell us it will cost over its life cycle at least $1 trillion. It may cost as much as $1.5 trillion. You want to start cutting the budget? Cut the F-35 right now. And by the way, the planes that were just sent to Poland, to the Baltic states to deter Russia, they weren't F-22s, they weren't F-35s. They were the old F-16s and F-15s because they work and because they don't need an army of contractors to maintain them.
And I've seen Top Gun. I know those things can take on a Russian MiG.
Is this system reformable? I mean, it seems like we've been making these complaints now for decades. Is there something inherent to the system that builds in this corruption?
Yes. It's about jobs back in home districts. Really starting in the 1970s and gaining speed through the 80s and the 90s, the major defense contractors, and I stress the big guys because some of the little defense contractors are fighting the good fight, but the big contractors realized they did not have to defeat America's enemies. They simply had to win the Battle of Capitol Hill. And so contrary to fundamental economics, they dispersed functions throughout virtually every state. So there are at least a handful of jobs in nearly every congressional district. Well, when it comes time to pose for campaign photo ops, Congress loves the troops. When it comes time to vote, they will screw 6,000 troops to save 6 do-nothing jobs in their home district. So the first thing you got to do is reform Congress's approach. A quarter century ago, Congress actually let the defense bigwigs rewrite the contracting rules. Guess who they favor? If defense gives us a weapon that doesn't work, the taxpayer, not the contractor, basically has to pay to fix it. The engineers who once designed great weapons for America are no longer the most important things at people at defense contractors. The most important people are the lawyers. If a weapon doesn't work, we try to cancel it, they sue the government. It's a self-licking ice cream cone, and until you can reform it, until you can reform acquisition, you are not going to save money. And look where they're cutting right now. What do they want to cut? They want to cut people, our veterans, people that are highly trained, the most experienced military we have ever had. And what do they want to do? Cut people in order to buy the F-35 for $1 trillion.
Good Lord, it's ridiculous. Hey, Ralph, thank you for your expertise and insight. This is really fascinating.
Yeah, Katie, you can tell I'm real calm about this. I hate waste.
I know you do. And you have some explosive quotes I wish I could requote, but we're on a TV show right now. Something about African elephants.
Yeah, I can't do that one, but that's my attitude about defense contractors.
Thanks again, Ralph.
A nickel a herd.
That's right. Oh, Lord. All right, I'll tweet it out. It'll be good. All right, if you want us to blow your mind, come with us down the mine of inefficiency, deep into the cavern of waste, where everything is written by hand and shoved into thousands of old file cabinets. I'll show you the pork sister. Stay. That is the Arc de Triomphe. We're coming to you live from Paris. That's not true. It's New York City. It's such an international place. This is The Independence, where we're taking stock in what we got, what we spend, and why the government is so damn inefficient. There's a haunted limestone mine in Pennsylvania that houses 28,000 file cabinets and 600 employees in the Office of Personnel Management. Everything there is done by hand, which would be great if they were weaving or welding, but they're the agency in charge of retiring federal employees. No computers were harmed in the making of this disaster.
It's one of the most epic glitches in the federal government. Instead of a modern digital process, every retirement application from every federal employee is filed and processed on paper. Here's how it works. When someone retires, the file is printed out and shipped across the country to the mine. Old records from the same employee, which are already on file with the mine, must be retrieved. If any document is missing, it must be hunted down through phone calls and emails to other federal agencies and added to the file. This process can take days or weeks or even months. Finally, the important information from that paperwork is keyed back into a computer by hand. The data is now digital again, after a paper-based process that lasted weeks.
Oh my God, it's such a disaster. The feds have spent over $100 million over the last 3 decades trying to automate the mine of inefficiency, but they just can't do it. The process of getting your paperwork all in order, it takes 61 days on average for retirees, the same amount of time it took in 1977. Joining us is Washington Post reporter David Fahrenthold, whose recent article exposed the Cavern of Doom. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
So were you able to visit the mine of inefficiency?
I was. I went in there and got sort of a tour from the Office of Personnel Management. We sort of followed a hypothetical case, went through all the different caverns where where anybody's file would go. So yes, I saw it in person. And
what was it like?
It's a really strange office. So it's in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. It's an hour north of Pittsburgh. You go down sort of a tunnel into the ground and through a tunnel, and then you finally end up at a door. You open it up, and what you look at looks like an office from about 10 feet down. So there's cubicles, photos on people's walls. There's some easy listening music playing of somebody's cubicle. But then if you look up, it's a limestone mine. There's a sort of an arch ceiling of solid rock, painted white with, you can see netting and sort of other kinds of metal things in place to brace up the roof so it doesn't fall on people's heads. It looks like an office, except that it's inside a limestone cavern.
David, what is preventing this from being fixed? Is it fixable, I guess, is one question.
Yeah, how can you automate it?
Well, there is an argument that it's, and you'll hear this from people who work down there, that it's so complicated. Congress has made the rules for federal retirement so incredibly complicated that it's just too complex to automate. But, I mean, the point of a computer is to do complicated things, right? So it's hard to imagine that there's not a computer that could perform this task if you did it the right way. The problem in the past has been that they've started these giant automation projects that have gone on for weeks and weeks, for years and years, and then at the end of years and years and millions of dollars spent, they test them and find that the system they built doesn't do the job they wanted it to do. So it's probably more a failure of those individual projects and of government IT contracting generally, rather than something about this system that is inherently uncomputerizable.
Yeah, and they've obviously made repeated efforts to get this done. It seems as though they might be a little embarrassed by what's going on. I mean, they would not allow you to come in and take photos and take video.
They wouldn't allow photos and video, and their excuse was that there was, every one of these files has somebody's social security number and birth date and things like that, so they didn't want those getting out.
I think 60 Minutes was at the NSA not but a few weeks ago. This seems like sort of a dubious explanation.
Yeah, I was glad to get in at all, but for us, it was a strange situation where I had to come back and basically it was like reporting in the 1800s. I had to describe what I saw to somebody who drew a sketch of it. It was like we were at the Battle of Bull Run or something.
By candlelight, you descended into the mine. Now, is it haunted?
There are rumors that it is haunted.
Yes.
Now, just imagine the situation we're talking about here. There's 8 caverns that just hold file cabinets. So they're, just L to M is its own supermarket-sized cavern underground with just thousands and thousands of 5-drawer file cabinets. And there's not a lot of people in those file cabinet rooms now, so you can imagine it's a little eerie and a little spooky. So there were rumors among the people that work there of ghosts. I mean, they're not very harmful ghosts. What they do is pull the file drawers out and leave them open.
No, what boring ghosts. Like, I would at least go to Studio 54 or something. I'm going to hang out with files. All right. David, thank you so much. Great story.
Thank you.
All right, we'll post the article online so you can read it on our website. Very good. All right, coming up, I go searching for waste inside the Capitol building. But first, how well do you know your stupid spending? Which agency spent thousands of dollars on pole dancing? Get ready to get paddled.
I can't just sit still and feel sorry for myself or your man that got killed, or your girl that got killed, or your family that got killed. I do though, but I gotta wear, man, I gotta will. They say I pimp the industry if I simply. What do I get? I only want to bend the state to the end. What do I get? What do I get? Oh,
what do I get? What? Hi, this is what you get. This is the Independence. Shall we play a game? Who spent it? With so many government agencies and programs, it's hard to keep track of all the ridiculous things they throw your money at. So let's test your knowledge and see if you've been paying attention to what you've paid for. We've got 2 Fox Business superstars who follow the economy spending and government waste with aplomb. Let's welcome Elizabeth McDonald and Adam Shapiro. Welcome to the Independence first time.
Thank you.
And now, are we ready to rumble? You have your paddles?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let us go. Question number 1. Who spent it? In 2012, the government spent $325,000 for a robot squirrel to study the interaction between rattlesnakes and squirrels. What government department paid for this? Was it A, the EPA, B, Department of Agriculture, or C, a grant from the National Science Foundation? And the correct response is C. Liz Mackey got it right. What? One for the lady. It was a grant from the National Science Foundation. Very good.
That was a wild guess on my part.
You know what? You were doing so well. You have 100% so far.
Okay.
The men have.
It's not an investigation. It's quiz show all over again. You got the questions beforehand, didn't you?
I don't know. I'm just randomly guessing. Go.
No, it's
on to a scorching
estrogen
start.
telepathy. All right, question number 2. The government spent $3 million to study how Congress works. Which department conducted the study? Was it A, NASA, B, the State Department, or C, the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Congress doesn't work, but...
How Congress works. I think I'll just do this.
And the correct answer is A, NASA.
Oh, no
wow.
way.
Why was NASA looking at that?
Remember, they do weird things.
They do do
They
weird
have that study on how the world's going to fall apart because we're Rome.
What part of
in your lane,
space
NASA.
is Congress?
That's weird.
Well, there's a huge void in between the ears of a lot of congressmen.
There you go.
And it's a moonshot.
All the
trying to
spending
get a
is heading from Uranus. What? Uranus. I always get the pronunciation of that planet incorrect. Question number 3. To celebrate the 75th anniversary of Superman, this department spent $125,000 on a documentary about comic book superheroes called Superheroes, A Never-Ending Battle. Was it A, the Smithsonian Institution, B, a grant from the National Education Association, or C, a grant from the National Endowment of the Humanities?
I totally got it wrong.
You all totally got it wrong. The answer is C. It's a grant from the National Endowment of the Humanities.
So our tax money has to go to an organization to celebrate Superman.
Well, this is a noble.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And a
why not Captain America?
A comic book about superheroes.
Maybe that's
Or Wonder Woman.
Let's not presume that they haven't spent your money on that.
Right.
It's quite possible.
Question number 4. By the way, Liz Mack's still in the lead with 1. Question number 4.
I'm tied. Nobody got that one?
No one got that one.
I haven't gotten
Liz,
any
big
points.
one.
I'm going in right now.
I'm betting 1,000.
All right, this department spent $10,000 for a choreographed pole dancing performance. What department was it? Was it A, a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts, B, the Commerce Department, or C, the IRS?
Just for fun, I'm
Pole
going to say the
dancing?
IRS. Yeah, pole dancing.
It's not. They're not
Liz, you're
investing.
still in the lead. It was a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts. Matt, you have 1. Liz, you have 2.
Matt?
It is a barn burner.
I would
with
have-
3 questions.
But pole dancing is a tax-deductible business, isn't it? Remember that whole lawsuit where the woman, she was able to make the case as a, maybe she was a prostitute. So I'm going to get off this
This is stimulus. This is stimulus.
Enough
spending.
about your Twitter followers, Adam. All right, this department spent $630,000 to increase its Facebook likes. Is it A, the State Department, B, the IRS, or C, the DEA? Everyone got that right.
remember that
It's the State Department. Adam and Camille, you're on the board. Matt, you have 2. Liz, you have 3. Question number 6. 2
Here we
questions
go.
left. This department spent $500,000 to study shrimp on a treadmill. Was it A, the National Ocean Service, B, the National Science Foundation, or C, the Agriculture Department?
Shrimp on a treadmill.
Shrimp on a treadmill, work, work.
like a
Shrimp
show
on a
segment.
treadmill, work. Adam, you got that right. You now have 2. It's the National Science Foundation. Last question.
What do we got score-wise here?
Liz
We're
is still in the
tied.
lead. It's no, he only has.
I have 2.
You have 2.
You got 2 right.
2. You've got 1. You've got 3, Liz.
Oh. Okay.
All right. This department spent $6,279 on snow cone machines. Is it A, the Department of Commerce, B, the Arctic Research Commission, or C, the Department of Homeland Security?
Oops.
$6,200 on snow cone machine. Ooh. You all got it right, which means, Liz, you are the winner. It was Homeland Security. And thus brings to
That
an
was
end
fun.
who spent it.
Tell her what she won,
Thank
Johnny.
you. A snow cone machine.
You get an hour with
With the
Pelosi.
pig?
Yes. Yes, so you get to take Pelosi for a mani-pedi. She loves visiting her cosmetic dermatologist. Or you can feed her anything in sight.
Anything inside. Okay.
Yeah,
don't try
either
to
way,
pick
the
her
two
up.
of you would be.
Don't pick her up. What happens if you pick her up?
She squeals.
Oh, she
And that's why
squeals?
she's up there and not in my lap.
Okay, there you go.
Adam and Liz Mack, thank you very much for
Very
being
fun.
here.
Thanks for
You
having
guys
us.
are awesome. That was a great game. You two. I expected more.
I know.
Yeah.
After the show, flogging. All right, we're going broke, but Congress has it pretty good. Congressional perks in an era of personal austerity. They suck. I storm the Capitol building next. Where's the pork? Right behind me. That's our pig, Pelosi. She's sleeping because it's exhausting when you spend all of your energy and all of your money on stupid projects. She's our metaphor for bloated government. She's very sweet, though. All right, I'll tell you where some of your tax dollars are going, to the wolves who are watching the hen house. You guessed it. Congress knows how to treat itself right. Pete Sepp is the executive vice president from the National Taxpayers Union. He took me to D.C. to point out how good they got it on Capitol Hill.
The chosen ones have a variety of services to choose from, including the famous Senate hair care salon. So tell me all about this boondoggle.
Pretty expensive establishment. Part of the problem is some very expensive legacy employees getting paid $70,000, $80,000 a year.
And that's a great job because the average hair care person in D.C. makes about $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we're paying for it?
That's right, you're subsidizing it.
This is impressive. You can also get a manicure, the waxing, all Ryan, because, you know, that doesn't wax itself, and a variety of services.
Oh.
No?
Oh.
Some of the cabinet makers and furniture designers here in the Russell office building make upwards of $100,000 a year.
That can be the price tag if you want to produce custom pieces that the senators want.
Tell me about franking.
The franking privilege is something that allows lawmakers to do things such as responding to constituent inquiries, but also sending lots of pieces of unsolicited mass mail, lots of puff pieces that allow them to build goodwill among their constituents.
So what is this, a super secret subway system?
If you need to get around quickly in the Capitol, this is the way to do it.
It's sort of like the small intestines of the Capitol. It just sort of moves the...
Yes, movements back and forth, and like many public transit systems, a lot of the cars are empty.
Tell me, were there really ice and firewood deliveries to the Senate office buildings?
On the House side, that then Speaker Gingrich decided that was too extravagant, and so members and staffs would have to go get their ice and firewood themselves.
Oh, that's exhausting.
So tell me about some of the health benefits for the chosen ones.
You get a variety of choices of plans. The benefit can continue in retirement, too, which is something very rare even for a Fortune 500 company.
So do members of Congress fly for free?
They absolutely do at taxpayer expense. They get a budget to go back and forth between their districts and Washington, D.C.
Senate recording studio in case Roy Blunt wants to come down here in the middle of the night and throw down a few licks. What do they do here?
The recording studios serve the purpose of letting members of Congress get their message out. It gets deducted from their office budgets, but they also end up getting a message out that's very self-congratulatory.
I miss the 90s. I'd like to spend some time in a recording studio. Let's see if I can go book a session. How can I book some time here? Is it possible to book a session? What's no? I'm paying for that. I should be able to book a session. That's all I'm saying. My mouth trumpet needs to be recorded for posterity. All right, for posterity, or my posterity. Pete Sepp was kind enough to take me on that tour last year for Stossel, and now he joins us on The Independence. Welcome, Pete.
Good to see you again.
Great to see you, too. I had a lot of fun that day. It was very informative, but has anything changed structurally since you took me through Capitol Hill?
Well, not a whole lot. Now, members of Congress are now spending a little less on themselves. The legislative branch appropriations amounts to about $3.2 billion annually. That's down, actually, by a good 15–17% since Republicans took over the House of Representatives. Still, they've got a long way to go. They may not live like kings, but they do live like very well-pampered princes, let's say that.
I mean, don't you think, because a lot of members of Congress are millionaires, shouldn't they have to foot the bill for at least some of their travel and their cars and other perks on the job? Why should taxpayers pay for that stuff?
Well, that is a good question, especially when you look at their retirement package. After all, a lawmaker can shell out just a very small amount. Actually, the system was reformed in 2012. They now are under the same formula as other rank-and-file federal employees, but that's only for those who first entered office after the 2012 elections. The ones who were there before then are grandfathered under a much more generous system that can make them millionaires just from their retirement benefits.
Oh, no, those are generous packages for sure. Now, earlier in the show, we heard about about a program for planes that will never fly that's going to cost over $1 trillion. Is this really small potatoes? Does your union overlook other aspects of government spending out of control?
Yeah, we are talking about a relatively small amount with Congress, $3.2 billion out of a budget that's about 1,000 times, more than 1,000 times larger than that for the whole federal government. But there are instances of waste, fraud, and abuse throughout government. Travel is a big area. There have been studies now from the Government Accountability Office showing that executives of various federal departments are using government planes for personal travel, sometimes to the point where they're taking planes away that are needed for things like federal investigations, like CSI. So this is a major problem, and it's not just confined to members of Congress.
Certainly not. Pete, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, well, we'll have to go back and do more investigating. Well, if there was only a way to track government spending and generous subsidies with your smartphone. Oh, wait, is there an app for that? Find out next. They're asking, where's the pork? Where do your tax dollars go when you're not looking? Our next guest married his burning curiosity and unending need for transparency with technology, and he has crafted an app that follows the money. Adam Andrzejewski is the founder of Open the Books. Adam, welcome.
Great to be on the program, Kennedy, Matt, and Camille.
All right, so you have apparently found the pork. Tell me about your website and your app. What do they do, and is it fun looking for government waste?
Oh, it's a blast. And we have no idea where our tax dollars are being spent. At openthebooks.com, it is our mission to post online every dime taxed and spent at the federal, state, and local level across the country. And to that end, we've got 1 billion lines of government spending. And as I like to say, there's 1,000 Pulitzers waiting to be won by rooting out the waste.
I hope so. Well, Camille is sitting here toying around with the app a little bit, and he has found some mighty interesting things.
Yeah, I actually freaked out a buddy of mine a little earlier today because I looked up his salary. I punched in his name, not expecting it to come back. How did you guys compile all of this information? What repositories did you go to grab all of this?
Well, we're first to market in the largest database of federal spending, so we nearly have all disclosed federal spending. It took us a couple years, about $500,000. It's been a lot of hard work. So we have 5-year salary histories of the federal employees. We have about 200 million lines of disclosed federal spending, all contracts, grants, loans, insurance payments, and farm subsidies. And we then went out to the states at the local level. We have 50,000 state government employers. So at the local and state level, with all disclosed public salaries within those employers for at least 1 year. In states like Illinois and in data like in California we have 5 million salary and pension records at the federal, state, and local levels.
But part of the fun here, right, is to get the recipients of government grants. It's to go into John Cougar Mellencamp's hometown of Seymour, Indiana, and type in the name Mellencamp and see how many people are getting some of that delicious farm aid. What do you have and what don't you have in terms of people who receive either corporate welfare or just government grants overall?
Like right there in downtown Manhattan at Fox Studios, if you key 10036, what you'll find is some interesting things. I mean, you find all sorts of contracts, but you also find insurance payments to the biggest banks for billions of dollars, to Wells Fargo and Citibank and Bank of America. You also find that a grant went to Chase Bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, for $31 million from the Centers of Disease Control. Now, we wanted to know what that was for because it says immunizations, and when we filed a request on the Office of Openness, Accountability, and Transparency in the Barack Obama administration, they said that they don't have a paper trail. They don't have the grant application. No audit was ever done. They can't find one piece of paperwork on that grant.
And how much money was that again?
That was $31 million to a bank for immunizations.
I mean, that's incredible because Nancy Pelosi at the top of the show, we showed the clip where she says, you know, there's nothing to cut. The cupboard is bare. But clearly, your app shows the opposite.
Well, it does. And Kennedy, in your zip code out in California, on local salaries, what we find is that there's over 100 local officials earning over $200,000 a year at taxpayer expense.
That's insane. Oh my gosh, I'm totally getting on Camille's iPad.
Now, we actually wanted to display the California state checkbook. And so we filed a request with the California comptroller. And after 8 months of back and forth, he rejected our simple request to see the money without citing any California law, exemption under the Open Records Act. He just basically told us to go away.
Wow, that is so Putin-esque. All right, well, Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me on the program here.
Very good, and you can download the app for yourself. Open the books. It's fascinating. You can check out different zip codes, people who live in your neighborhood, and if anyone works for the government, you can see what they make. And indeed, we found the pork. We'll share our thoughts, the forecast, and a nice appetizer next on The Independents. Welcome back to The Independents. At the beginning of the show, we brought out an adorable pig named Pelosi, who served as a metaphor for out-of-control government spending. So what happens when you indulge your every desire and fund too many pet projects and programs? This. That's right. And by the way, Pelosi, gone. But not forgotten. No, look. Isn't that awful? Yeah. The important aspects of government will be consumed by all the unnecessary spending that does very little to help the intended recipients. You start with a project in your district or an adorable little piggy that doesn't go to the market. It turns into bacon. Rest in peace, Pelosi. Your good intentions may have failed you, but in the end, for a brief moment, you are delicious. Gentlemen? Oh, that's quite good.
Thank you.
You know,
I'll take the raw one.
Family, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't really...
Yeah.
I'll hold the peace in solidarity.
Yeah, why don't you
Since
tell
the
us
pig is already
what to
dead.
look out for, Camille? What did we learn today?
I think we learned a great deal.
forecast,
We
Camille?
learned a great deal, but obviously we don't want to get distracted. It's fun to make fun of the government going ham and wasting money on really ridiculous things. But at the end of the day, we have a real problem with entitlements and with serious out-of-control spending. And conservatives got to get serious about being willing to cut defense spending.
And debt servicing.
Yeah.
And I'll believe that they're serious about it when they act like they're serious about it, which they're not. There's nothing left to cut. There's so much left to cut. It's obvious.
Amen.
No, that was one of the incredible lessons of today is all the overspending. Well, we're all out of pork. Thanks to all our guests. Thanks to you for watching. And for Matt Welch and Camille Foster. And, of course, sweet little Pelosi, by the way. She's fine. You can read all about her on our website. I'm Kennedy. Good night.